Anytime you're ready, Jen.
From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Thursday, April the 12th, the year 2018. And now here they are, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, Jim and Rich.
I don't know about that.
All right, Jim, you look like you've this is not the end of the week, but it looks like it could be the end of the week.
It could be the end of the week. Actually, we've been like the walking wounded in the office the last couple of weeks. One of my associates was sick for most of the week.
Who?
Last week. And I started on Easter Sunday with a sore throat, and then Monday and Tuesday I really couldn't talk very well. I was in the office Wednesday and just barely made it through the day. Then Fridays, I've worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Today, as we record on Wednesday, tomorrow I am taking off.
Oh,
and then I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then maybe Monday. We'll see.
Okay.
But basically, if you haven't done your tax returns yet, boys and girls, you need to get in and do them.
Okay. Thanks for the reminder.
Just for the reminder, a couple of other reminders for those in our vast radio audience who happen to attend Ridgewood High School and graduated in 1969. We've got a reunion coming up next year, and Mary Georgianis Waldron is starting to put together the committees. So find her out there on Facebook and let her know if you want to help.
All righty.
That includes you too, Massaro.
I actually volunteered, and I've never heard back from them.
She reminded me of that today.
What did you remind me of?
That, see if Rich wants to do it. And I'm going, I'll ask him. I don't know.
I'll tell her. I'll tell her myself. It's one day, I don't know how Sue Piasecki got involved in this, but she she put something out on Facebook.
I saw that.
And I replied to her, and I never heard back.
Okay.
So
another one that I think is involved in it that didn't go to, at least not only didn't graduate with us, didn't even go to our school, I think, is Marie Polito.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. She might as well have gone to our school.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, but at any rate, Jim,
I promised Mary, I did it. I promised.
Okay.
I said I'd do it right away.
Jim, I don't know if you're in. You said that you had written some things down. That maybe you had some things on your mind you wanted to talk about.
Well, a couple of things. Nothing
that
much.
I keep hearing. Do you hear the same thing? It's like the ocean roaring there for a second, then it goes away. I don't know.
No, I hear some background noise.
Okay, no, that I hear too, but that's not what I'm talking about.
That's what I was hearing. No, a couple of things that I'd written. I noticed the Bears did not match the offer sheet for Cam Meredith.
Okay, I hadn't seen that yet.
So it's nice that, he's got at least one person to throw to.
Who knows what that's going to be like.
What's his name?
I don't know. Who's healthy?
Who's healthy, and who did they pick up? Who did they sign?
They signed Robinson and Daniels.
Yeah,
I think. Is it Taylor Daniels?
Yeah, and the tight end from the Eagles,
Trey Burton.
Morrissey
had a good column on that one day, and he said, before, Bears fans have been all excited about some of the signings previous to this, and most of them didn't work out. And what about this group is any different? And I sort of agree with that.
I agree, and I'm not getting myself all excited until we see what happens. I think there's some positive things that are going to come this year, and I think it's going to be really dependent on the draft. Mm-hmm. I had a mock draft that I was going to talk about tonight, and that's another thing I have no idea what I did with.
Jim, let me ask you: when you talk about the mock draft, I'm starting to get a little nervous because the name that keeps coming up in the papers is the safety from Alabama.
Yeah,
and I'm not so sure. Maybe I'm being too fanish and not enough trying to step back and be more footballish about it. But I'm not sure if I like that pick.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I do either. I would certainly love to see the lineman from Notre Dame, but I have a hunch he might disappear.
Yeah, he may not be there.
He may not be there. It's going to be interesting because a couple of these mock drafts that I've seen have built-in hypothetical trades, which I find very interesting. For teams moving up or teams moving down. I think there's a very good possibility of the first 5 picks could be quarterbacks.
They're saying out of the first 8, 5 could be. Yeah.
Which I suppose is fine for the Bears, especially if they want to get the lineman from Notre Dame.
I turned the radio on yesterday. Just for a minute, then I think I had it on. I had the Cubs on, so it was on 670, and I just heard a little bit of I don't know whose show it was, but the little scrap I heard is the announcer was saying, "Well, is it possible that the Bears might want to trade down?" And I'm thinking if Nelson is not there,
if Nelson isn't there,
could you trade down and get the other guy from Notre Dame, McGlinchey?
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to do something with the offensive line, which I think is critical.
I think so too.
Maybe more critical than anything else they have going right now.
I think so too.
I mean, if you really believe that Trubisky is the guy, and you've given him a couple of weapons, hopefully, potentially they're there, then you got to protect them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that could be a good that would be a good choice if that's available to them.
Yeah. Now, who the heck knows what they would want to do or how the whole thing figures to play out, I have no idea. But
yeah.
Jim, I was going to ask you before we, and it's already faded to a certain extent. I know that we couldn't do it last Wednesday, which would have made it more fresh, but boy, Loyola saved winter sports for us here this
Wasn't
year.
Wasn't that a great story? Wasn't that a great run?
Oh my gosh!
My gosh, that was a lot of fun to watch.
Unbelievable. We were on Thursday night. We were at the local tavern. It was I think it was might have been the second game that they played. Second or third game, and we were there for bar bingo. So there was a lot of neighborhood people there that aren't normally there, and the bar was packed. And Loyola again dramatically won the game, and the place went crazy. I mean, the city was, thank God, because the Hawks and the Bulls.
This was
a bad winter.
Yeah, this was a really great story, and going back in time to other relationships and things, there was a great Jesuit and Loyola connection because Pat Hussey's uncle, Jim Hussey.
Yeah, Jim
was,
Hussey.
No.
Oh, her uncle.
Her uncle.
Her brother. Okay.
Her brother went to Loyola.
Okay.
But her uncle was president of Loyola from 1945 to 1955.
Oh, okay.
As a matter of fact, during his time, that's when they bought Lewis Tower.
Oh, okay.
So, it was kind of interesting. It was good to see that, and that, made me think of some memories going to stuff at Loyola, and because when you're married into a family where there's 3 Jesuit priests,
yeah,
and on the other side a nun who's a BVM, same as
BVM stands for?
Blessed Virgin Mary, right?
Okay.
Blessed Virgin Mary. I'm out of practice being Catholic, John. I haven't done that in many.
They taught me at St. Andrews.
There you go. Yeah. And that was Sister Jean. She's BVM.
Okay.
And
Boy, what a lively lady she is.
98 years old and threw out the first pitch yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that Jim,
and she wanted to meet Charles Barkley, but she didn't want to see him play basketball anymore.
There's 2 things I wanted to throw out, and to me they're semi-related anyway. Right away, the papers are saying, is Porter Moser going to move on to bigger and better things? Is Loyola going to be able to keep up the good work? And I'm like, you know what, guys, give it a rest. Loyola is, Porter Moser, I think, is in a good spot, and I think he likes where he's at, and it's taken him a while to get to this spot, and Lord knows if they'll ever get back to it. But,
Yeah.
take it for what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
take Loyola for what it is. I mean, it's a mid-level school. Well, I think the one of the lessons I wish that the NCAA would learn from this, and it was just a gut feeling on my part, as the season kept going on, I kept thinking Loyola should be in this, regardless if they won
The Missouri Valley?
Missouri Valley or
yeah,
not.
absolutely.
And you know what? Thank God they
They're-
were in it, and look what they did.
The selection committee's bias towards the Power Five
It's unbelievable. It's
conferences is really ridiculous because you're letting a lot of good schools fall by the wayside.
terrible. Yeah.
And the fact that Loyola had to win the Missouri Valley just to make the tournament, with the record that they had, they should have been in there on their own.
Of course, they had an excellent. Jim, do you remember when we were probably high school age? And in the winter when football was over, baseball hadn't started yet. I remember on Saturday afternoons, the Big Ten would usually have a game, and
Sure.
then if you wanted to watch some more basketball, the Missouri Valley Conference had a game of the week.
Yeah.
The Missouri Valley Conference historically, if you want to put it that way, and I know that it's the makeup of the conference has changed multiple times since then, but historically you could make the case that the Missouri Valley is more of a basketball conference, say, than the Southeast or some of these others.
You have schools with great traditions
Yeah.
in that conference, and yeah, I don't know if I'm just finishing up a book. I'm just finishing up a book that John Feinstein wrote about that about.
The Big Dance, or
No, he wrote it, and it's basic. I can't remember the exact title of it, but it's basically about North Carolina basketball. Dean Smith, Jim Valvano, and Mike Krzyzewski.
sure, I've read the book. Yeah, I
Read the
know what
book.
you-
Yeah. And it made me think of that because I know at one point in time, I don't know if they were back then, Southern Illinois was in the Missouri Valley, or
yeah.
is.
Oh, sure.
And there was a great story in there about Valvano when he was playing for
Iona
or
was it
Rutgers.
Rutgers. Okay.
Rutgers, and they wound up going against Southern Illinois, and I think it might have been in the NIT.
Okay.
I think it might have been in the
Yeah,
NIT.
because Southern won the NIT.
Yeah,
that
I
one
think
year.
it might have been the NIT. And Valvano, in the story, is Valvano is talking about that I was on fire in the first half. He said, I didn't miss a shot. He said, then at halftime, Jack Hartman, who was the coach of Southern, switched the defenses around, and who's guarding him?
Frazier, right?
Clyde the Glide.
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't miss a shot in the second half.
I didn't
take
take a
one.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, that is a great story.
Yeah.
No, it was just between the whole idea of is Moser going to maybe possibly move on, and how is Loyola going to be able to replicate what they did this year, those stories, and then the constant talk, not just in Chicago but throughout a lot of the sports cities throughout the country, about teams. All of a sudden, it's the in thing, the tank. And I'm really getting sick of that.
I want to talk about that one too in a bit. But going back to the issue of Porter Moser, interesting interview not long after the tournament ended, probably the Monday or Tuesday, or the Tuesday after, or that weekend maybe, might have even been the day of the Final Four. I can't remember. But driving in, I had the score on, and they had the AD from Loyola.
Watson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting interview. And talking about the fact that, speaking in general terms, what they need to do. But he said, I really like the old days when an athletic director would call you and ask permission to talk to your coach.
Okay.
He said, and they said, he immediately jumped on. They said, so Porter has been approached by other schools. He said, oh yeah, he has. Mm-hmm. He has. And he said, nobody said anything to us, but Porter came and said so-and-so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Jim, we're talking about the AD for Loyola. It reminds me of something that's been sort of sticking in my craw. There's been a lot of And I think we might have even talked about this for a minute or two the last time we met. But Gene Lenti Ponsetto has been getting a lot of heat, and I've been saying to when I talk sports with whoever I happen to talk sports with between our shows, I said, you know what? Did anybody ever think that DePaul men's basketball is not the only sport at DePaul University?
Right.
The women went to the NCAA this year.
The women have made the NCAA quite a number of years in a row, but I think the issue that everyone looks at DePaul, you go back and look at the glory days.
Sure.
With Ray Meyer coaching and then Joey following. And when they decided, well, okay, they formed that first conference. What was that? Was Conference USA, wasn't it? Wasn't it known as, or there was something else?
Could have been.
I think it became Conference USA. But when that kind of disbanded, after they got out of that conference or decided to move from that conference, they don't belong in the Big East.
No.
They didn't belong in the Big East then.
No. Jim, think about this, though. When I saw DePaul play Marquette, the Marquette team that had Meminger and Jim Jones and Gary Brell and Bob Lackey at the old Alumni Hall.
Sure.
And DePaul, I think Joey Meyer was on that team, and
that's around 19. Well, Joey graduated in 1970, I believe.
So this was the late '60s, and Marquette, of course, was an excellent team, and DePaul was an average college team. Lost the game probably by double digits, easy. But if you think of DePaul prior to the era that you're talking about, they were a competitive but not a great program.
Right.
I don't know what happened. Ray Meyer got Mark Aguirre to come for I don't know how that happened, and they got onto a roll. It lasted 10 or 15 years, and now they've gone back to being what they were. And my point would be this: everybody is not going to be able to be a power program, okay? And maybe DePaul, first, the number one problem, as you just pointed out, is being in the Big East.
Right. They don't belong
The
there.
second thing is maybe DePaul just needs to be a good competitive program, and maybe they're never going to be a top 20 program again. I mean, that might be the reality.
That might be the reality of it, that they're just never going to do that. And, you brought Dave Lato back, and I think he was the last DePaul coach in his first time that had a winning record. Subsequent to that, they didn't have it. And I think I saw, most near the end of the season, in this particular time, Lato's like 31 games under 500. And I don't know how much longer, I don't know how much longer they're going to stand for this, and I don't know how much longer it even pays to be in that conference. You probably should look for one of the, whatever the conference that Loyola was in prior to the Missouri Valley.
Yeah, I don't know where they were at.
I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head.
There's no way I could even tell you. I mean, if you said it, I wouldn't be able to say yes or no.
And you know what? I mean, another thing is get back to, if you can schedule it, get back to some of the traditional things that the games that used to be on the schedule. Of course, a lot of times you can't do that anymore because you're going to fill up with conference play starting right around the first of the year. But, the days when you used to play Marquette, days you used to play Notre Dame.
Yeah. Well, those are your natural
rivals. Play UIC. Play a Loyola.
Play Loyola, for sure.
Haven't played Loyola in years.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it took a long time to get them to play Loyola. They didn't play each other for over 20 years, just simply because George Ireland and Ray Meyer hated each other's guts.
Yeah. Well, I think they've totally lost their way, Jim. When you think about the Chicago players that Meyer was able to get, not only were they the best players in Chicago, they were really good players nationally, and they also had that little bit of New Jersey connection.
Sure. You had
'Cause
you had Gary Garland and
right,
Kenny Patterson.
right, those guys. So, and I don't know how that connection came about, but here's the thing: if you looked at, say that you could get the best player in the Chicago Public League schools, to come to DePaul. I don't think no disrespect to the public league, but Chicago schools, there's less of a school population.
Right.
And if you got the best player, that player would probably not compare to Mark Aguirre or Terry Cummings anyway. So what have you really got? I mean, Ray hit it right at the right time when there was a wealth of talent, and he got some really good ones.
There was a wealth of talent. He was able to cultivate it, and one of the reasons he was able to cultivate it, and they had such a good following at that point in time, is the Bulls were just bloody awful in those days.
Yeah.
If you wanted to watch good basketball, what would you do? You'd watch the college game. The Bulls weren't drawing flies.
Yeah, that's true. I at that point I was a season ticket holder. I could tell you. I can confirm that.
Yeah.
So no, I just think I'm not saying you shouldn't have expectations. Yeah, I mean, but I also think you need to be realistic, and I'm not sure that DePaul is ever going to be again in a position where they can say, "Hey, we're a top 20 team" or "We're a top 10 team."
No.
I mean, hey, if it happens, God bless. But
I mean, great. What schools are similar in nature to DePaul? Villanova, a city school.
Yeah.
Catholic too. Hey,
Yeah. But
two national championships in the last 3 years.
And of course, look at what their leading player is a
Kid from here,
from Illinois.
kid from the
Jalen
area.
Brunson. Although what nobody really says is he's here in Illinois as a high school as a prep player, but he goes back east because that's where his father went to school.
Okay.
So I mean
Okay.
that's those types of connections are valuable. I just think I put it this way. I would like to see, of course, DePaul basketball, men's basketball be good, but let's not be so narrow-minded that we don't see that the athletic director in this case is overseeing every program.
Sure.
And I know that women's basketball is strong. I can't speak to the other programs, but if the administration says, hey, overall, she's doing a good job.
I think she's doing a good job. I think I think, and I haven't checked, I know at one point in time they had a very strong women's softball program.
They did, yeah.
I don't know if it is, and I think their soccer team is pretty
they've had
good
other
too.
Strong, they've had other strong sports, and I don't think they offer that many sports to begin with.
No, but I know the women's basketball. I always enjoyed
Doug Bruno.
Bruno was convinced every time he saw me at a DePaul event he had to get me drunk. I don't know why.
Hey, now no wonder you like him.
He'd see me at something in the Blue Demon room, and if your beer's empty, let me get you another one.
I don't know. Maybe
I don't know why. I don't know why he felt that was necessary.
Did you check your pockets after he was
I
done
don't
buying
know.
you a beer?
I don't know.
Was he
I don't know,
picking
but
your pocket or something?
I always liked Doug. He was always a good guy. We always had a lot of fun.
Now, was he an assistant on the men's side for a while at one time?
He was assistant on the men's side. He was Gene Sullivan's assistant at Loyola.
Okay.
I think he was an assistant on the men's side. I remember Doug. Do you remember I'll give you a name. I'll give you a team from the past, a blast from the past. The Chicago Hustle.
Sure. Yeah.
Bruno coached them.
Okay. I was going to say Chicago Hustle.
I think Janie Fincher.
Janie Finch,
Janie Fincher, Rita Easterling,
Tanya Johnson.
Yeah, Janie is when she'd go to the free throw line, everyone would yell, "Deep breath, Janie."
Yeah. Oh, Janie Fincher. Yeah.
But I remember, and I think it was like the next to the last game or maybe the last game of the season, and the rumors were already out that I think it was already decided that Bruno was gone.
Okay.
After they hired that guy who owned the bar and was a high school coach,
Oh, I don't know.
Bill something or other, I think.
Okay.
He owned a bar at Montrose in Elston. I think it was called Coach's Corner.
Okay. I've heard of it.
But Bruno, it was the last game. Bruno had a meltdown on a call. Absolute meltdown, and went absolutely berserk on the call. And I believe they teed him up real quickly. And I have these vague memories of watching the highlights on TV, and they had to carry Bruno off the court.
Oh, my God.
Just
Well, as a little, jumping into a little Chicago hustle history, Janie Fincher and Rita Easterling, through Tanya Johnson, recruited a really probably the best girls basketball player we've ever had at Ridgewood, Anita Bond, to go down to Mississippi College.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and I met both of them briefly, and nice, seem very nice people. But yeah, I mean, I knew Tanya Johnson when she was the, I guess she was the rec director at Franklin Park District, and I said, got to know more about her. And said, Tanya, we have a girl at Ridgewood that I think, I'm not an expert on this, but I think she's really got the ability. So Tanya came out and looked at Anita, and she called Janie and Rita, and they came down and ended up recruiting her, and she went down to, now this isn't University of Mississippi State, this is Mississippi College. And she went down there and played, I think she played a couple years and then transferred to UMiss. And I haven't seen Anita in years, but I also think that she played on a Final Four team at University of Mississippi eventually. So
Okay. All right.
yeah, so
Yeah.
there was a Norwich Chicago hustle connection.
Norwich connection that way.
Yeah,
I don't know what they need to do at DePaul. The one thing I always liked about Dave Lato, and he came after Pat Kennedy. Some friends really thought, and Pat Kennedy succeeded Jim Valvano at Iona.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think he succeeded him at Iona, if I remember right. He also wound up down at Florida State.
Florida State, I think.
Florida State, and that's where he was hired to come to DePaul.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I didn't like about Pat Kennedy, he'd say one thing in the post-game press conference, and then get in front of the alumni in the Blue Demon room, and as we're all there, and had a tendency to run his players down.
Yeah, that's not good.
And I didn't particularly care about that. But one thing I noticed that was great when I saw Lato, if one of his players did something,
Mm-hmm.
and they stood up and pulled him out. Under Kennedy, you'd see point to the end of the bench and go down and sit there. You'd see the kid come off, Lato would call him over, and take the moment. You could see him gesturing and pointing out on the court and taking an actual coaching moment.
Sure.
And then it was, all right, go sit down for a sec, go take a blow.
Yeah.
And then at the first opportunity, point back in,
Yeah.
which I liked. And I thought that's the name of it. You got to do some teaching.
Well, I mean, just it makes me think about a question. I don't know if I've asked you on this show or if I thought about asking it, but do you necessarily have to have a winning record to be an effective and a good coach? I think in some respects, yes, but in a lot of respects, no.
No, you're judged on, unfortunately, you're judged on that bottom line, wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
But no, in some aspects, I think if you produce, what do you need to produce? You need to produce good players that play consistently and are also good people.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the hardest part to find.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, in this day and age of one and done, Loyola was like, oh my God, old-time basketball.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Old-time basketball, good kids, smart players.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought they really would have had a really good chance to beat Michigan. the way they stacked up because
Yeah.
they were very good, very deliberate, and very thoughtful. They thought they were smart. They thought on that court.
The one thing that I was worried about prior to that game is actually what happened. Mo Wagner or Mo Wagner, whatever his name, I don't know how you pronounce his last name. He, in terms of Loyola at least, was a beast, and I think a beast that they had no answer for, and that basically is what did him in.
That's really what happened. Yeah,
So-
exactly. Let's break the stations, John, and you can put it back together while we sit here.
I have some.
You're listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norge and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Thursday, April the 12th, the year 2018, with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now, friends, back to Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro.
All right, thank you there, Doctor. All right, Richard, what were you saying as we were doing this that you said, you may not like this, but...
Well, yeah, and if you don't want to do it, we won't do it. But you've been to Rex's Italian...
Been a
deli,
while.
right?
Been a while.
Well, the Anthony Pinello, who's one of the owners, is a big Patriots fan. And, he talks Brady and Belichick all the time. And so this morning, for some reason, I'm getting up thinking about this, and I guess I'm thinking about the show as well. And this has nothing, he has nothing to do with you, but you may get put in the middle of this. I'm thinking, okay, you're a Patriots fan. I started looking at some old Patriots names from the beginning of the franchise.
Babe
And
Parilli.
Babe Parilli, Butch Songen. But I came up with some trivia questions, which I'll pose to Anthony, but I wanted to lay them on you. And you know what? If you get one out of the three, I would be surprised.
Probably won't, but we'll see.
But okay, the first touchdown ever scored in the AFL, and we're talking about the first AFL exhibition game, was between the Patriots and the Bills.
Is Frank Filchuk involved?
No. The player who scored the touchdown, I give you one hint, went to Holy Cross University, and he is credited with the first score ever in the old AFL. He's a member of the Patriots Hall of Fame. And do you have any
No.
clue? Okay, does the name Bob D ring a bell?
No.
Do you remember now? When you think about this, the Patriots right out of the box, I think were not that good. But then it didn't take them long to get up to speed. And I started to look at this. Their defensive front four was a really outstanding one for the AFL. They had Larry Eisenhower,
I remember that name.
Bob D,
Mm-hmm.
Jim Hunt, and Houston Antoine.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember that. Yeah.
Bonacani was in the middle.
Was he that early? I thought he came later.
No, Bonacani was
he
yeah.
was he from right
Yeah.
from the start?
And one of the things I was thinking about as I also was thinking about this is, the AFL, Jim, was probably the most successful league to challenge the NFL,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
But the guys who ran it were John, I'm good. Were really smart,
Thank you.
and they knew where to look. Think about this: the NFL at the time, you carried 33 men on your roster. There was 12 teams, so that was 360 players.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good players out there that were not members of NFL
Yeah.
teams.
Oh, yeah.
But on to the next trivia question is there was one of the original Patriots, who's also in the Patriots Hall of Fame, was one of only 20 players to play the entire 10 seasons in the AFL, the entire 10-year history of it, from Prairie View A&M.
He was a running back.
Nickname was Earthquake, and he's also in the Patriots Hall of Fame.
Running back.
No,
No?
not a running back.
Oh,
no.
okay, no.
No. So, Jim, I just mentioned him, Jim Earthquake Hunt.
Okay.
5'11", 255 pounds. So
Rompin'
rock'em sock'em.
Rompin'
dynamite.
stompin' dynamite.
Now, here's the one, Jim, if I had to bet, I'm thinking you might get. This guy is a member of the Patriots All-60s team. He's a quarterback from Michigan State. But he connected for 12 TD passes and 12 interceptions, yet he is still a member of the 60s All-Patriots Century team. Have any idea?
I'm trying to run back, and I'm not getting any names coming up.
It's Bob Usick, Bob Usick, or Tom Usick, I should
Tom
say.
Usick.
Tom Usick was the punter on the 60s All-Patriots team.
I'll be doggone.
And a Michigan State, actually played one game of professional baseball with the Detroit Tigers in 1957 as well.
Holy cow.
So, but I you know what? I'm gonna, when I see Anthony, I'm gonna. So you think you're a
So,
Patriots
Mr.
fan?
So,
Mr.
Mr. Patriots, let me give you a couple
Mr.
of
Patriots. Let me hit you with a few of these.
Things. That's cool.
So-
That's cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to get on to something you started talking about. How, I don't know, what was the term you talked about? How tanking has become fashionable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting sick of hearing about it, and I'll be honest with you. Did we talk about this before? Or
I was gonna talk about. I wanted to talk about this
because I think I brought this up at coffee or with Jimmy Sunshine, and who's the big agent that's got all the big powerhouse agent?
Yeah,
Scott Boras, and when the free agent sort of glut was on the market, and a lot of these guys weren't signed. He complained that I know part of it is because he wants to make money, and some of his guys were not being signed. So it's not like he's totally, being how would you say it? I don't know what the right word would be, but he did make a good point. He said this is professional baseball. Since when is it okay for all these teams to say we're basically tanking because we're not going to sign these guys and make the club as good as they possibly can be?
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that says, okay, part of it is selfish interest. You want to make some more money. But the other part is, I think, spot on. And part of what I think is, the Cubs probably set the table for this.
for all sports.
For all sports. But you know what? It doesn't mean that you can, if it's like everything else in sports. If the blueprint was just that easy to do, then everybody could do it easily. And it's not good. The Cubs hit it right. I could remember, Jim, when you said to me on this broadcast, that when the Cubs prospects at that point, made it, then the Cubs were going to be contenders. And I said, well, they're not all going to make it. But you were right. In this case, they made it.
They just pretty much all hit.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that made it, and that's made them, and that's the thing that the White Sox are hoping for with the prospects that they have.
Yeah, they're hoping for it, but who knows how it's going to?
I don't know.
come about.
I don't know if it's all gonna. I don't know if it's all gonna hit. I think, going on to the White Sox, I'm not sure if Tim Anderson's eventual position is going to be is his true position is going to be shortstop, or he's going to be someplace else. I thought it was a little surprising that they signed him to the type of contract they did after such a short time.
You know what? I don't worry as much about the say a Tim Anderson, who came from the White Sox organization.
Right.
But when you say Javi Baez, Kyle Schwarber, Chris Bryant, Wilson Contreras, those were guys. Pardon me.
All drafted,
all draft. Ian Happ. Those
Right.
are all guys that the Cubs
nurtured.
and said, these are the guys that this is our vision for them. When you start bringing, I don't care how good they are,
When you bring 'em
when
in.
you start bringing them from other organizations and they're not guys you originally said, we want this guy for this reason, not sure how that's going to work. I mean, maybe it will. I don't know. I can't say that it won't, but is it those are two different things we're talking
yeah,
about.
it is, and it made me think. I mean, I've heard people talk on the radio, callers say, well, this really isn't a true rebuild that the Sox are doing because they didn't draft any of these guys.
Mm-hmm. I sort of agree with that.
To a sense, I understand it.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do is rebuild.
No, they are trying to rebuild.
And they did it in a similar way that the Cubs did by dealing currency
Right.
for prospects.
Sure.
That's the Cubs happen to do it. The Cubs happen to do it and start with guys at maybe lower levels to move them up. The Sox are taking the higher level prospects, those guys that might be a year, 2 years away.
Right.
And in a sense, it's kind of a modified Kenny Williams, let's go for it all now
Yeah, it is.
approach.
It's a great point. That's a great point.
And is it going to happen? Yeah, I think in a couple of years, Sox are going to be a really, really good ball club. If these players hit,
Yeah,
even
if
if
they
a
hit.
couple of them hit. I don't know about their pitching. I think Carson Fulmer is not all of
Also-
that in a bag of chips.
Well, there's the other thing. If you
Giolito might be.
you could probably push a position player a little quicker than you can a pitcher.
Yeah,
But they
yeah,
seem to
yeah.
want to push the pitchers a little quicker.
Yeah, and that
doesn't always work
and that
out.
doesn't always work out. You wind up, and they've always had a reputation for that. And you wind up with guys who are have arm trouble. Rodon,
Yeah.
when is he going to be back?
Yeah. Well, there's a guy who's we've been hearing for 4 or 5 years. Well, he's got great stuff, but he's never able to be on the mound.
He's never able to last a season. One of the things that when you started to talk about tanking becoming fashionable, I thought you were going to talk about the Bulls.
Oh, the Bulls. Yeah, I was going to jump into that next.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that too because I think the season is over now, or is it
Tonight?
Tonight's the last game.
Yeah.
Tonight's no winner, no play. The United Center has no playoff
Nothing
activity.
at all. Nothing.
The ice is melted and everything is
Yeah.
gone.
No playoffs for anybody.
Yeah. There was a really, really interesting interview, and the guy is, doggone it, I think his name is Mark Dietz. I'm not sure. I tried to find him on Twitter. He's an NBA reporter, and I think he's British. And I think he covers the NBA for the overseas and has some articles he posted. And he talked about the fact that they asked him about the question that, people expected the Bulls to be worse this year, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the gist, and it was a long dissertation that he came out with, but essentially so they're not as bad as you thought they were, and they won a few more games than you thought. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
It shows you maybe have some talent.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is some talent there.
Is now I think Levine could go after this year.
Yeah.
I think he may be one that they won't offer a contract.
Well, the papers though were already saying that he's in line for a big contract, and I'm thinking, well, okay, the papers are saying it, and I've only heard them say it there once. And I'm like, why? Why would he be in line for this? Don't you have to actually prove something before you do any of this?
Yeah.
One thing is you got to stay on the court as a healthy player, for one.
Yeah.
I mean, we just went through a whole deal with Derrick Rose not that long ago where you had a really good player and he couldn't stay healthy.
John has that look of disgust on his face as soon as you mentioned Derrick Rose.
Well, I had to do it for John. I know he likes that subject.
Is he still in the league, or did he?
He's with the Timberwolves.
Timberwolves? Did he manage to last to the end of the year?
I don't know if he's playing much, but I think they signed him.
Okay.
They
did.
Yeah.
They did after what was it? Cleveland traded him to Utah, and Utah released him.
And
right away.
The Timberwolves signed him.
Yeah.
So
I know.
Thibodeau threw him a lifeline, and he took it, which is probably smart on his part because God knows if he'll get another chance with anybody.
Great disappointment. Great disappointment,
Yeah.
really.
I actually it didn't disappoint me that much because I my feeling is if you think that you're going to build a championship team around a 6-foot
Point guard?
point guard who who's got a questionable outside shot and his biggest part of his game is going in there with the big timber, you're probably fooling yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think that the other thing, Jim, I really think the Bulls still. I mean, Markkanen looks like he's going to be good. Dunn and Levine. I think all three of them are still sort of iffy. I don't think they've proved that much. They still don't know what to do with Valentine. What's interesting, Jim? A guy like Denzel Valentine, Michigan State, really good player, not a lottery pick.
Brother, assistant coach at Loyola.
Brother, assistant coach at Loyola.
I thought it was Denzel sitting on the bench. They look alike.
It's almost like there's a bias, though, where, okay, this guy could never be our team leader. But Denzel Valentine's, and I'm not saying that he's good enough to be the guy on the Bulls, but what I don't like is the prejudice, the way I see it. Well, this guy wasn't a lottery pick. There's no way he's ever going to be the guy on our team. Yet there are some nights when he goes out and he is the guy on your team.
There's some nights he is the guy.
So, and you know what? Maybe if you used him in a consistent manner, maybe he would be the guy. It's sometimes I wonder if Larry Bird came along today, if he would be even the guy anymore.
Be a free agent signing, and they'd be down in the. Well, I was going to say it's the D. It was the D League.
The G League. No,
what does the G stand for?
Boy, god awful. I don't know. I don't know what the heck it stands for.
Hang on. When did the D League become the G League?
Yeah, I don't know what G League stands for. Obviously. Oh God, man! But they are sort of interesting, though. You know what kills me though? I mean, 85% of the season is gone, and they pick up this kid Kilpatrick, who's been in the league, and every time I look in the at the stats, he's in double figures.
I know,
and I'm like, what?
I listened to the game the other night. Driving on there, 7 games. Sean Kilpatrick, he's averaged 18.7 points a game.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, what I don't know. It's what though, the Bulls are. I guess they're trying to pull it together. I'll tell you what, Hoiberg has done a. Somebody said to me the other day, well, I don't know if Hoiberg's going to be back. I go, he's definitely back. He's solidly back.
He's going to be back.
And if they ever gave him a consistent, I think, rotation that he could, that was in sync with what he likes to do, I think the Bulls would be a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Now, whether they're ever going to be really challenging for the Eastern Division title or anything, I couldn't say. What, Jim?
The Eastern, I think if you get a halfway decent team, it's easy to challenge in the East.
Yeah,
the power is still in the West.
Yeah, the power is in the West. Although I just saw today that Kevin Durant is going to. Well, I guess he's thinking about re-signing with the Warriors, but he's going to go on the open market after this year. So now that's the type of guy the Bulls could use. Because that's a actual star player that you could hit your star to.
I love the opening line. I love the opening paragraph of Joe Cowley's article today. Bulls formula leads to another L, but nicer lottery odds.
Yeah, nicer. Why would I want to go to a game when that's our goal, to get a lottery pick that may or may not be any good?
Yeah. Despite playing most of the fourth quarter with insert names of G League guard, backup guard, journeyman wing, and bad contract big, and of course Bobby Portis, the Bulls played with great effort or fight, depending on what kind of mood Coach Fred Hoiberg is in, before losing to insert opponent.
Yeah, right, insert opponent. Who did they lose to last night? The Nets, was it?
Nets.
Yeah. The league has sort of lost me, though, Jim. I don't know. It's not that interesting to me.
No,
in a lot of ways.
And do we sit through and watch this not only for pro basketball, but for college basketball? Do we only watch it to get through the regular season and get to the playoffs when real basketball seems to be played?
Well, I tell you what you say that real basketball. One night, man, it must have been a night when there was nothing on TV.
Sarcastic on there, really.
I'm watching the Bucks versus the Clippers, and I'm thinking, you know what? This is street basketball. Okay, I understand the players are talented.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that they're playground players, but they're playing playground-style basketball. There is no defense at all.
There's no defense, and the game has become shoot the three.
Yeah, that's it. You know what? I was talking with somebody one day, and I said, I'm not trying to be an old timer and saying, this team was better, but the Bulls would kill the Warriors. You could take the Warriors could win 82 games or whatever they play, 84, whatever it is, go 84-0. The Bulls would kill the Warriors, okay, because the Warriors play no defense, and the Bulls would actually contest their offense, and they would beat them. I mean, the Michael Jordan Bulls I'm talking about. There's no question. I don't see, maybe Tibbs's team plays defense, and the Celtics play some defense, probably the Spurs, but how many teams really play good defense?
No.
So
it's not the case. It's basically come down,
put
shoot,
the ball
up.
And when you really look, Jim, and okay, if you're a really outstanding and talented team, you can get away with this. But you'll see a guy in a situation where maybe they need to take a little more time off the clock. They'll run down and take a shot, and there's 15 seconds left on the shot clock. Well, if you're the Warriors, I mean, you could get away with it. But if you're the Bulls and you're doing this type of thing, no, you can't do that. And so what I'm saying is they play the game without any seeming connection to what's actually happening in the game.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating to watch at times.
And you start to see that in some of the college game, too.
Yeah.
You kind of wonder that, especially late in the game, and I think it was probably the game Michigan State lost to be eliminated from the tournament. It was a Sunday. I'm kind of keeping a watch on it on play-by-play on Yahoo Sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading the plays I'm reading the plays, and so-and-so comes down, shoots a 27-foot jumper, rebounded by somebody else, and goes the other way.
Yeah.
Teams, Michigan State commits a foul. Guy goes down, shoots the other end, come back up, shoots a 27-foot jumper.
Yeah.
You still could be in the game.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You still could be in the game if you drive the line, drive, come down the lane, drive the lane, put it up, maybe get two, get fouled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And play some freaking defense and maybe get the ball back.
Well, sometimes I wonder, Jim, if the general managers, I'm talking about NBA ball now, if they've lost all their marbles, or if you look at the guys that they are, there's 8 guys who are generally thought to be possible lottery picks. 2 of the guys, Marvin Bagley and Wendell Clark, both play for Duke. Now, if these 2 guys are supposed to be lottery picks, my question is, how come Duke didn't advance to the Final Four even in the NCAA tournament? If these guys are all that they're going to be somebody that if you're an NBA team, you're going to be salivating over. It didn't even help your college team.
What's the big deal over
Yeah,
it?
What is the big deal? Go ahead.
That's like, I was going to say, that's like, why didn't Virginia get out of the first round?
Yeah, for sure.
And not just get beat, got beat.
Yeah, got beat big time.
Yeah.
I've been looking at the deals section. I look at it every day. The guys who are declaring for the NBA draft, as you would say, Jim, are who's who of what's what, or how do you say it?
I said,
The what's what?
yeah, he says he's the he's the who's who of who the hell is he?
Yeah, right. That's right. The who's who of who he. Yeah.
Yeah. Auburn announced sophomore Austin Willie has declared for the NBA draft.
Yeah. Now, who the heck is that?
There you go.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. You know what? You might as well.
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago somebody referred to the Bears secondary as leading the league, and who the hell is he?
Right. Now, with the type of talent we have here, LeBron could go on and play for a pretty long time there, Jim.
Yeah. Looking to see if there's any other. Let's see. Nope. Oh, Miami announced sophomore Bruce Brown Jr. will enter the NBA draft.
Right. Now, why are these guys? Somebody must be whispering in their ear and saying,
You can be a star.
Yeah, you can be a star.
I'll be your agent, but we won't sign a contract, so if you don't get picked, you can go back and play next year.
Yeah, that's what happens. So.
But I'll give you the money under there, and nobody will know.
So, Jim, before we end up, though, the other team that was seemed like the sports writers couldn't decide whether they should tank or just keep going and develop their youth was the Hawks.
Yeah, and you know what? I look at this. I looked at this team, and I'm glad to a certain extent they're staying pat with the management.
Right.
And I think Q is starting to get the idea that, hey, young players can be played, and, should be played,
Yeah.
and develop some talent.
Yeah.
But the problem is you're still hung with some really, really bad contracts.
Some bad contracts is right.
Man. You got money you can spend, but nowhere to spend it.
Well, I think today Bowman, or in today's paper, Bowman was saying, well, we do have the money, but we're going to have to stash some of that away because eventually Schmaltz and DeBrinkets and these guys are going to have to be paid as well.
Yeah.
And which is a valid point.
Which is an absolute valid point because there's your future. The big question I'd want to ask is Jonathan Tays done, or is this just one of those years?
You know what I say, Jim? I never played hockey, so I don't have hands-on experience. One of the things I always question, Taves, he scored 20 goals. He didn't have a lot of points, but I don't know enough.
Still decent on the face-off, winning the face-offs, which is important.
And of course, he plays against the other team's top line more often than not. So that
and
part
on
of
your
it.
Special teams too.
Yeah, I mean that part of it, I can't really talk that much about. I don't know that much about it, but that seems to be his strength, and probably always has been his strength.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that they keep saying is that in the case of him and Saad this year, their possession numbers, which I think that means something, were good. But they seem to both think that, for some reason this was a year that the bounces just didn't go our way.
Bounces didn't go their way, injury problems. And I think one of the things they likened Tays to, as far as having an off season and hoping for a bounce back,
was Andrzej Kopitar.
Kopitar.
Yeah.
Likening him to Kopitar.
Yeah.
On what kind of year he had after this year, after a horrible year.
Yeah.
The prior year.
Yeah.
And I still think there's hope. God Almighty, you got to get a good backup goaltender.
Yeah, that's
and
for sure.
You got to hope that Corey Crawford can come back.
Yeah, that's what. If we don't get Corey Crawford back, you might as well hang it up because I've said for years I would listen to the say the national broadcast and you'd hear about Carey Price or you'd hear about the guy in Nashville, Rene. And you'd hear about the guy in New York, Henrik, I can't think of his last name.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
All these great goals. And none of
in
these guys have ever won anything.
The guy in Nashville for years, I thought he was an Italian guy, Pecorini.
Yeah. But, these guys are all great, but I don't ever see them in the Stanley Cup Finals.
No.
Guess who's there? Corey Crawford.
Yeah.
I mean, finally they're beginning to realize Corey Crawford is a huge part of this team.
And isn't it nice to see? And they kind of proved themselves last year that the Predators won the President's Cup
Yeah,
this year
yeah,
for the best record
yeah, yeah.
because they sure skated
Rings around the Hawks.
rings around the Hawks last year. All of a sudden, you look and go, "My God, they got old quick."
Yeah. Well, that seems to be the prevalent thinking. But, it was interesting. Duncan Keith, when the Hawks beat the Blues a couple games from the end, sort of let the cat out of the bag and said, it sort of felt good to have something where it felt like we were playing for something, which sort of told me that they were on cruise control for quite a while this season.
Yeah,
And,
Yeah.
I think, though, Jim, when you look at the high level that the top players in the Hawks have played at for how many years? I mean, 9 years in a row in the playoffs. And the mental energy that it takes as well as the physical. I'm not saying you like to see, them sort of fall off the cliff, but, sometimes it's inevitable.
sure.
I don't know that you can
Sure.
keep that performance level up that
No.
long.
I mean, those. I think the league is such, and it's becoming a younger league, like everything is. Those stretches where you could go back and look at a team and seeing, well, Boston made the playoffs 29 years in a row.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. Or the Red Wings missed the playoffs this year, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Red Wings, the Hawks, the Blues.
The Hawks,
they all
the
missed.
Blues missed the playoffs
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. They all
And
missed.
you had you've had teams with substantial runs over the years. It's time to retool.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely is.
And I think they're in good position in the draft. I'll be interested to see who they re-sign
Yeah.
and get
Well, they're putting some. I know that they're hoping that, and I don't know how to say his name, but is it Henri Jokiharju?
Yeah, I don't know how. I want
I'm
to
not sure how.
Yokaharu or something. Yoka.
Yeah, I
I
don't
was
know how
going
you say his name.
Jokajaru, I
Yeah, I
don't-
mean it's spelled like that, Jokajaru, but they're
Sound
thinking
like a Star Wars character, actually.
they're thinking that he may have a shot to make the team out of hope. They're hoping he might have a shot to make a team out of training camp.
Yeah.
So there's the other thing is how are some of these players going to develop? Ruda, Gustafson, those guys have to take a big step up. I think.
Yeah.
I if I had a bet, I'd say if the Hawks are going to spend some money in the offseason, it would be looking at another goalie.
I think it's needed.
Yeah.
I think it's needed. Well, September will be rolling around, and the Hawks will be back in training camp, and we'll be wondering about what happens then.
Yeah.
John will be wondering where Derek Rose is going to play next
Yeah,
year.
he's worried about Derek.
He's already starting to think about that. I can tell he's nervous about that.
They got the Derek Rose Super Fund going.
Yeah. He's starting a GoFundMe page for Derek Rose.
Really. Bring
folks-
Derek back to Chicago.
You folks look, keep a look out there on the internet. And
Look at Chad.
John-
You never see John get disgusted, but you bring Derek Rose's name up. Look at him. He's like, jeez.
I know. All right. Well, first time we've gotten together in almost a month,
Yeah.
maybe, and I think we still managed to
Yeah.
put together something that entertained us. I don't know if it
Yeah,
entertained
that's right.
you, but at least we were amused, and by golly,
That's what I'm worried about.
that's what. As long as we're amused, we're happy.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll do this again. I don't know, week. Oh yes, John, next week, and I'll be done with tax season, so I can do it earlier, and I don't have to come at night.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Can we do that?
What time?
I don't know. We'll talk about it when we get off the air.
Well, that's right. Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds
we don't want to let these folks in on our show preparation and
Yeah.
show planning,
For
because
sure.
God knows they know it's a well-tuned machine, a finely tuned machine. All right, let's get out of here. We'll do this again, I guess, next week. All right, thanks for listening. Until next time, we are Taillights.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts From the John DeVito Broadcast Center on Thursday, April the 12th, the year 2018, on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Jim Leanne and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVito, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chikondo. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, April the 11th, the year 2018. Until next time, friends, please be safe and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois.